Shabbat Shalom. What a big weekend this is. For far too many reasons, this is such a heavy time. I hardly need to list the things that we may be feeling anxious, if not really afraid of. But this is a weekend that many people have looked forward to. Not just because of our lovely gathering for Shabbat, our Musar later in the day, and tomorrow, what will please God be a safe and powerful and effective unity march against anti-Semitism. Downtown, the Embarcadero, and at Civic Center for those who are able to attend. Please do so safely and may it be fruitful. But this is a weekend that many have looked forward to because it is the weekend upon which, finally, Dune Part 2 is released. Dune was supposed to be released, second part, back in November, the weekend of my daughter's wedding, and when we found out when it was supposed to be released, we informed her with very straight faces that we would not be able to attend the wedding. But pretty soon, that date was delayed because the continuing strikes in Hollywood prevented the actors from properly promoting the movie, and so it was postponed until the first weekend of March, which seemed a rather insurmountable length of time. But here we are. Thank those of you who laughed, because that means that that's not completely something that I said from out of left field. There would have been a time when the release of a movie such as Dune would have meant very little to me. And in fact, generally, movie releases don't mean all that much to me. So the fact that I'm really excited should probably tell us something. Dune Part 2 is the second installment in the modern cinematic interpretation of Frank Herbert's genre-defining science fiction book, Dune, published in 1965. I won't ask for hands of how many have read it, but I'm going to imagine, I hope that a few have. There was a time in my life when a book like Dune would have sent me running for the exits. But because of my regard for Cantor Andy, and because we were very well locked down 4 years ago, I said, all right, I'll try that book that I've heard so much about. Sure enough, it is a game changer. It's a very strange book, and for me to give you even a sense of the plot or a synopsis, we would miss lunch, and I don't want anyone to do that. In a very tiny nutshell, Frank Herbert created an extraordinary science fictional universe, some of which doesn't seem as impossible perhaps anymore. It begins set in the year 10,191. There are references throughout the series to humans having had a tyrannic origin. These are all human beings. There was a great revolt against the machines, and human beings control most known corners of the universe. They have expanded out to planet upon planet. And there are, of course, wars and power struggles and mighty families and greed and corruption and secret orders. And there is one planet known as Dune, or Arrakis, because nothing in those series ever seems to have one name, but the planet called Dune, where the most valuable substance in the universe, called the spice, is found. Wars over who will control the spice, how it is used, and by whom define much of the series. I've never mentioned it here before because A, I had not read it until a few years ago, but B, because there's not a whole lot that's noticeably or embraced actually by the creators as Jewish in it. However, one digression before I get to the heart of what I wanted to share today. The person who is considered a messianic figure in the book is referred to as the Kwisatz Haderach, which if you read as a Hebrew phrase is Kfitzat Haderech, which is a mystical term, a Kabbalistic term, meaning someone who can transcend time and space in short bursts of mystical, energetic explosion. And that's exactly what the person in the books is supposed to be able to do. So though it's primarily focused using Zen Buddhism, Catholicism, Christianity, and Islam, those are the more overt religious references in the book, the fact that the Messiah is referred to as the Kwisatz Haderach, that's how they say it, I said to Cantor Andy, that's a Hebrew phrase. So how it got in there, probably quite consciously, but we don't have Mr. Herbert around to ask anymore. So there are definite Jewish spices, if you will, in there, but primarily it's drawn from other traditions. The order, the secret order that works extraordinarily powerful behind the scenes, and not so much behind the scenes, is a group of women called the Bene Gesserit. These are a mysterious group of women who control time, space, and other people's minds. They are in a long process of breeding to finally arrive at that messianic figure. It's complicated. Not easy to put into one movie. I don't know if anybody saw the 1984 David Lynch crazy movie. It's not for the faint of heart, but the modern ones, the Denis Villeneuve Part 1 that came out in 2021 is extraordinary. I highly recommend it. Don't worry about understanding all of the story, but they did an extraordinary job. I've never heard a movie that sounds that way. The sound of that movie is something else. And I want to give a shout out to the true heroes of the story, these giant sandworms that live on Dune. They're my favorite characters. Okay. The Bene Gesserit, though, are this extraordinary secret order of women. And they are enormously in control of their emotions. Much of the time, one wonders if they even have any. And this is what caught me for today. They have a mantra that they repeat that helps them in times of danger and peril, of which there are endless in their universe. And it is called the Bene Gesserit Litany against fear. And it goes like this. I must not fear. Fear is the mind killer. Fear is the little death that brings total obliteration. I will face my fear. I will permit it to pass over me and through me. And when it has gone past, I will turn the inner eye to see its path. Where the fear has gone, there will be nothing. Only I will remain. A lot of people begin their day with Frank Herbert's Litany against fear. Fear is a mind killer. It shuts us down and prevents us from making anything resembling good decisions. Under the influence of fear, we actually default back to a more animal response than human ones. The Litany against fear has been noted as being shockingly solid psychological advice. Fear is the mind killer, a little death that brings total obliteration. And yet, though the litany begins, I must not fear, the fourth line is, I will face my fear. So much of modern psychology and neuroscience have been insistent that avoiding negative emotions tends to make them stronger. And that's particularly true with anxiety and fear. Sitting with our negative emotions actually tends to lessen them, and that it can actually make us happier. Facing our fear can be very positive. So we need to let our fears to pass over us and through us. We can observe our fear and let it pass us by, experiencing without being damaged by it, or worse, defined by it. And please note, this is not good advice for processing traumatic memories, which are experienced differently. Trauma-based fears need to be dealt with proper therapy. I want to thank Allison Escalante for her excellent reporting on this. Rather than being damaged by our fears or defined by them, we also need to be careful that they don't become our identity. This is something that I encourage all of us to try on for size. How often do we say, I am sad, I am angry, I am afraid? When we use phrases like that, we're identifying ourselves, we're equating ourselves with those emotions, as if to say, who are you? And your answer would be, I am afraid, I am sad, I am angry. And that's not who each of us is. Each of us is an I, a soul unique like the unicorn, beautiful and rare. There's only one of each of us. We are not our fears, our angers, our sadness. We are each of us, a unique and beautiful human being experiencing those emotions. The more we can say, I am myself, and I am going through a period where I am sad, now look how far apart we are from the emotion. It's a very effective tool, and I invite you to try it on. Because even the best of emotions come and go. And when it has gone past, I will turn the inner eye to see its path. It's quintessential Musar, by the way, to become self-aware and look within to build our inner life. And where the fear has gone, there will be no thing. Also a mystical concept. No thing, the ain, is often associated and equated with the divine presence. Or just a space where only I will remain. We don't know the exact inspiration for Frank Herbert's Litany against fear. Some think it's inspired by Psalm 23, yea, though I walk through the valley in the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Some others have pointed to the book of Job, for then shalt thou lift up thy face without stain, yea, thou shalt be steadfast and shalt not fear. Thou shalt forget thy misery and remember it as waters that pass away, and thine age shall be clearer than the noonday, and you will shine forth and be as the morning. So there are a couple of suggestions from the Hebrew Bible as to where maybe the litany against fear came, but there too we will never know. Other cultures, other religions have very similar notions. Fear is the emotion that over and over again is blamed for the molten calf. The Israelites were terrified. They didn't know what had happened to that man, Moses, that guy that brought us out of the land of Egypt. We don't know what's happened to him. They don't say explicitly that they are afraid, but clearly they are experiencing deep anxiety and a sense of abandonment. For those of us who have felt that way, and those of us who have fears that we might need to sit with and face, and I'm going to hazard a guess that that's everyone in this room, We might try this on for size. I must not fear. There is so much out there and in our own minds that we can fear. And fear can be a motivating factor. It can keep us from danger. It can keep us alive. But it can also be so paralyzing and lead us to make decisions that we know are absolutely against our best interests. It is a mind killer, a small death that can bring total obliteration, but let us face our fears. Let us permit them to pass over us and through us. And when the fear has gone past, let us turn the inner eye to see what it has done. Let the fear go, and in its place, there can be potential for love. And we at the center, please God, will remain. Shabbat Shalom.